I'm now going to switch over to the actual configuration screens for both the vCloud connector node and the vCloud connector server, and go through all the options that we have available there and show you how I have actually set them up. So we are going to look at the vCloud connector server local, and we are going to look at the vCloud connector node local, and we will look at their configuration. So here we are in the configuration client powered by VMware Studio. I wait 1, 2, 3. So here we are in the configuration dialogues for the vCloud connector node, and as you know, the way you get to it would be to HTTPS into the address for your node at port 5480. So you end up in here. As you can see, this is a vCloud connector node. We looked at that before, 271, and the network for that, that's the same address that I had keyed in before. I did cancel out of it, but I told you I'm keying in the same parameters as I keyed in for the node that we're actually going to use. That's my vnode local. I put in a host name for that, so your DNS servers are there. The default gateway is there. We can look at the address settings. Again, DNS servers, default gateways. I'm not using a proxy here. Update. What update basically does is to allow you to check to see if there are any updates out there to the software. So my version is build 265.14.41. The latest version, something has changed there. The latest version is now version 27.2 for this, and you know the details are actually available there if you want that. By clicking on checking updates, it's going to go out there and check for available updates. And apparently nothing much has changed since the last time I actually did that. If you go to settings, and again this is all very straightforward, this is the standard way in which VMware has implemented appliances and the configuration aspects of appliances. So my settings are no automatic updates. I could automatically check for updates or automatically check and install updates, which people normally don't do. The repositories are also important to take a look at. So the default repository is already pre-populated there. You can get the update CD-ROM. You can use a specified repository. You can look at the update manager, the VUM, the VMware Update Manager, or the vCenter Update Manager there. So the key, so far we've seen nothing of that's really complicated here, right, for the node. It's system information, the regular stuff, the time zone stuff, your network status and address of that, the update, and the key tab in here is the node tab, and it's very simple. It has three other tabs in that section. So the cloud type, there are two cloud types available. One is vSphere, one is vCloud Director. So the node supports those two types of environments. I have a vSphere environment is my private environment, and this node supports that, so that's why it's vSphere. My cloud URL is, as you can see, very simple, and this is my vCenter IP. So my vCenter IP is 192.168.0.171. I'm ignoring certificates. I don't have a proxy. And when I update, click on update configuration, basically all it does is it says, okay, this node, I'm actually a vSphere cloud type node, and I have to get my information from this vCenter for this cloud. Basically, that's it. There's nothing else that you really have to do there. If you select a vCloud director, this is the same thing. In this case, you would key in the IP address of the vCloud director. So we're going to just play it very safe and put it back to vSphere. So that's the vCloud connector node. So after installing the OVF for the vCloud connector node, basically all you have to do is to come in here, make sure you have your host names setup here, which I actually did out on the local console for this appliance or this virtual machine. I just found it much easier to actually do that. That's where I did that. I used slash opt slash VMware slash share slash VAMI slash VAMI underscore config underscore net. I think you must be familiar with that, and I used that to basically change the host name. And I did this. I also changed the host name for the vCloud connector server also there. Okay, so very simple. This took all of like 5 minutes to actually do to set up this vCloud connector node and associate it with this single node. Can have a single association only, and I associated that with my local vSphere environment, my local vCenter, which is 171. Let's now take a look at the vCloud connector server. Again, same thing. This is I'm HTTPS over to the 172 address at port 5480 for the vCloud connector server. Again, the same thing here. We have the system here, same standard appliance activities with information and time zones. If you look at the network for it, again I changed the host name directly on the virtual machine console using the standard VAMI underscore config underscore net tool that we have. So the default gateways are the same as I keyed in earlier. And once again, you have the capability for checking for updates. It's exactly the same as I showed you before. We seem to be slightly behind on that build as well, but not going to worry about it right now. The only difference right now is from the vCloud connector server dialogues compared to the ones we saw earlier for the node is that now we have we have an extra tab here, which is basically the server tab. So the server tab has 3 different sub-tabs here. One is the general, where you change your passwords for the admin user. I tend to do it frankly from the console using PASSWD space admin. Slightly old-fashioned, but we could do it from here. SSL. SSL is disabled. Again, this is a lab environment, but normally you would have not self-signed certificates. You would probably have a real robust certificates from a CA that one would utilize. The key tab here would be the vSphere client. This is where we associate the server, the connector server to the vCenter IP. So basically what I did there was to say HTTPS colon slash 192.168.0.171, and I keyed in my username and password for vCenter, and what happened was that this connector server then gets associated with that vCenter. So the server on one side is connected to vCenter, and on the other side it knows about its nodes. So I'm not going to do anything here, and to be safe, I will now click on the nodes, and here we have the beauty of our hybrid cloud environment. You can see that we have a local node, and that is my vCenter or the vSphere cloud that I have managed by VMware vCenter server, and at that address, the node that is supporting this cloud is actually 192.168.0.173. It's up at this moment in time. Now this is the really interesting part. I'm also connected to the node in vCloud Air Germany, and I'm also connected to the node in vCloud Air Virginia. So this is my private site, vNode local. This is my public cloud in Virginia, and this is my public cloud in vCloud Air Germany. And using vCloud connector server through its interface that's visible in vCenter, I can manage all 3 locations. I can manage vCloud Air Germany, I can manage vCloud Air Virginia, and I can manage vNode local as well seamlessly, as we will see in the next section once we finish the configuration pieces. Register node is is also very this is how you register a node. So if, for example, I had set up in vCloud Air another site, say in New Jersey, I could set up a display name here. I could say INE New Jersey. There would be a node URL, and I will talk about this much more when we talk about configurations. It will be a public cloud, not using proxies, and again the cloud credentials would be here. It's a little bit different. When I key in vCloud director, I have to key in the organization name and then the user ID password. So this is the part that is a little bit different, because you have to get this URL first. This URL for that node. This is not the URL of the cloud site. This is the URL for the node, and that's what you have to actually put in. So let's cancel out of this. And what I just mentioned to you was that in the vCloud Air Virginia was the display name. However, it is located at https://p4v54, and then this really long URL up until cloud/org. So this is a conventional, because this part of the URI basically is obtained from vCloud Air documentation, and this is the really important point. This is not available directly in vCloud Air. What you have to do is to go to, if you're familiar with the VMware publications site, you can go in there directly, or you can Google for it. So what you're looking for is vCloud Air documentation library, and in there is a section on vCloud connector to be used with the various types of clouds: dedicated cloud, on-demand cloud, and private cloud, and so on. So if you go for the on-demand cloud, in there is a section that lists all the details that you need, including the IP addresses of the nodes that have been set up in those sites. So in the same way that I set up this vnode local for my private cloud, VMware has set up in Virginia one node for this site. You only need one node, so multiple tenants will be using that node, and they document this information only in the VMware vCloud Air library, documentation library. And same thing applies here. So this is how you get to the German node. So that's the address for the German node. And this part of it, this is the UUID of our organization, and this you can obtain from when you go into the vCloud Air, as we saw earlier. If you click on the top right hand side next to the Bitnami symbol, you get basically the UUID in hexadecimal of your organization, and the URL for the API. Well, this is where I picked that up. So I had a different organization in Germany, and I had a different organization set up in Virginia. So that's where I obtained that from. So the URL is this, right? You go into 8443, and then that's how that comes up. So it's straightforward. The only little difficult part to this is to obtain the is to actually obtain the the node URLs. So you have the node URL, and then of course that, and that's what the cloud would then look like, and this is your organization for that. Okay, so that's how this actually looks. You have to go to the vCloud Air documentation library to actually find it. Okay, so here we are. We have our hybrid cloud that's operational. The status is up of all our nodes. One point that I have not talked about yet is the local content library. This is your local catalog. So at the vnode local site, this would be your local catalog, because we have the ability in vCloud connector to synchronize catalog. So I can take the catalog in Virginia and say I want to synchronize that catalog locally. So the templates for the virtual machines are kept in sync, and that obviously is very important when you're managing multiple clouds. You want to make sure that whether you deploy a virtual machine in the cloud in either Virginia or Germany, or you deploy the same template here locally as well, you have the same version of the template. Let's look at some of the actions that are possible here. So I can edit it, I can unregister that node, I can download the logs to it as well. Now deploy stretch settings. We will talk about the ability to stretch the deployment as well using vCloud connector in a separate section towards the end. But just to let you know that what it basically does is instead of having a VPN connection between say two edge gateways and then deploy that, you're able to take the same IP address and all the other networking information and kind of take it with the VM even when you move that VM over to the public cloud. What happens is there's a layer 2 VPN that's created, and so even though the virtual machine may be actually using resources, compute resources and so on from the cloud, and it's running in the cloud, its networking is the same as if it was running locally, so it takes its network information with it. And I close this. So let's just go back again, verify we haven't missed anything. So that's the system, information, time zone. We've looked at the network update. Let's not worry about it. We have the server. This was the key tab. It says the server is registered with my vCenter server, and then we have the nodes that are maintained. So again, in this you can kind of visualize this, right? On one side, the vCloud connector server is actually connected to the vSphere client and for the UI, and then on the other side it is connected to the various nodes. I can, as we said, I showed you earlier with registered nodes, we can add any number of nodes. I don't know if it's any number, but certainly I'm sure it's a reasonable number of nodes. I don't know what the maximum is. And there we have it, the actual configuration screens for vCloud connector server and for vCloud connector node. Let's take one more quick look at it just to make sure we've covered all the bases for this as well. So system, vCloud vNode local, like I said, the host name I normally do right on the console of the virtual machine. That's the network. This is stuff we set up when we actually deployed the OVF. The node itself is the one node connects to one cloud, as we saw. So in this case, the node connects to my vSphere cloud, and that is all there is to it. So now we are back in vCenter where we left off in the networking section. So I have the vCloud connector server, its UI, which you will see in just a second, and we've seen that before, is going to be served out of the vCenter server, and of course on the other end we have the 4 connector nodes that we saw on the configuration screens as well. So when I go back to home in the solutions and applications, I see the vCloud connector, and I click on that, and that's the situation. So in Germany, that's my organization in Germany. These are the virtual machines. There's one virtual machine there. It's a CentOS 6.3 machine, as we saw earlier in the course when we were deploying machines. Its location is VDC1 and its status is stopped. Now, obviously, what I can do is I can select this, and I can either delete it or I can power it on. The same options show up in actions as well. So while we go around and take a look at the rest of this vCloud connector interface, let's just power on that virtual machine. Okay, now let's look at Virginia. So I click on vCloud Air Virginia, and as you can see, I have the 3 pool server virtual machines running. These are the same virtual machines that I had set up when we did the load balancing lab earlier. So 2 of these servers are running in one routed network, and one is running in a different routed network, and they are being served by gateways. And we set up a virtual IP. So these are the same servers that we had actually deployed at that time. Now, when you look at this, I had actually deployed this from a template. So this is a copy of CentOS 6332-bit that I had actually deployed from that catalog right from this interface. We will look at that in just a minute. So that's my organization. Obviously has these running there. The two VDCs, INE VDC2 and VDC1. So then the two catalogs. So this is the default catalog where we don't have anything, and this is the catalog that I created out in the Virginia site, which it will show me. This is talking across the internet. So now we are looking at the INE catalog Virginia. There is one template in there because we've deployed this virtual machine many times in Virginia, so it's been put in our catalog there. There are no virtual apps or virtual machines yet, only templates at this point in time. So that's what we have in that catalog. Now, if you recall, the public catalog, which is this catalog, which is the vCloud Air catalog, had a whole bunch of different templates, operating systems, and virtual machines that one could actually deploy. So when I click on that and I get the templates tab, I get all the machines that we saw earlier in a different fashion in the vCloud Air interface, right from the bottom, the Windows machines up to Ubuntu and the CentOS, and I usually deployed the CentOS 32-bit machine. Now, when I select on this template, remember this is a template that's on that public catalog. This public catalog has been set up by VMware, so it's part of the vCloud Air resources that you have available to you. It uses one CPU, 1024 meg, and that much of storage. What are the actions? When you look at the actions, you can see I can either copy, deploy, or delete it. Obviously, I don't want to delete it, and probably if I do this, the permissions won't let me do that because I'm in the public catalog. I shouldn't be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, we are going to see how we can deploy from here in this vSphere client. Looking at the vCloud connector interface, we can deploy a virtual machine in Virginia. So I click on deploy, and it says copy of CentOS 32-bit, and just to be safe here, I click in INE, and this is my test deployment. I then click next, and I select the target VDC. So if you remember, I have two VDCs in Virginia, INE VDC2 and VDC1. So again, the point here is that we are looking at a hybrid cloud, and sitting here in vCenter, I'm able to, using vCloud connector, just deploy resources and know exactly what I have running out there in the cloud. So I select INE VDC2, and when I select INE VDC2, the vCloud connector is obviously talking to vCloud Air. So out there it knows that INE VDC2 has multiple networks, and as you can see, that is correct. We have different networks available in that VDC. So I will just simply select the default routed network, and I will say next. Do I want to deploy it on? Do I want to power it on deployment? I'll just select that, and when I click next, I'm going to deploy a template that is in Virginia, right? vCloud Air Virginia. That's the name of the source template. So that's the source. So I'm here in my private cloud deploying in vCloud Air in Virginia. The source is in Virginia, and the destination cloud is also in Virginia. That's the name. That's a description I'm using. I had a choice of selecting which VDCs in Virginia, and then within the VDC I had a choice of which destination network, and I selected that, and I selected to power on after deployment. And when I click finish, there will be a new task which you can see on this side here. It's deploying a template of CentOS 6.3 in Virginia. And while that proceeds, let's look further. So we've looked at public catalogs, and we are deploying a virtual machine from there. I have the same capabilities obviously exist up here as well. If I go to vCloud Air Germany and I want to see, I click on the twisty, and I have default catalogs, INE catalog, and I have my VDC one as well, and there's a public catalog there also, and we can look at that, and it's basically the same catalog because it's a public catalog provided by VMware in vCloud Air. The tasks are the running tasks, and this is the running, and this is completed, so it's a list of all the tasks. Basically same thing that shows up on the right hand side of the screen here. Before we move off into the other tasks, let's look at one more. So I have CentOS virtual machine, and I select that. Now when you look at the actions, right, I have the option. Now it's interesting, now the delete has been grayed out because obviously I don't have the credentials and the access to do that, but doesn't matter. Now let's see what copy does. So I have selected the CentOS 6.3 32-bit template in the public catalog provided by VMware Air in vCloud Air Virginia. And what I want to do, instead of deploying, which is what I'm doing here, what I want to do is to actually copy. So I am now going to copy, and it's doing some validations. So what I need to do is to select a target cloud. So the target cloud, remember we are in a hybrid cloud environment. So since I selected a template in the public catalog in Virginia, in my cloud nodes, so to speak, I have the local node and I have the German node available. So where do I want to copy this template? So let's say I want to copy this template to vnode local, and I'll call it local. Let's give it a different name. I need to select a folder for this, and let's just select this one folder that is actually available. I select a cluster where to deploy it. Well, that's the only one that I have at this point in time. I can change disk formats, so we'll just leave it as thin provisioned, and that's the one data store that I have. And I have to select it. I always make this mistake. And then I click next, and it goes through a validation process. Should I power on? No, I don't want to power on. And this is where it becomes just a few things to consider here. So remember what we are doing now. We are copying from the public catalog the Cent 6.3 32-bit template over to our local cloud, over to actually our local content library, and that will be in that folder. And the machine is not powered on. It's a template at this point in time. It's not even a virtual machine, right? You'll actually have to deploy from that template and make it into a virtual machine. So what happens is, when you move that template over to your local environment, you have the ability to power it on. Now it's a vApp. Remember, it's a vCloud directory vApp, a little bit different from a vSphere vApp, because remember our local cloud is actually a vSphere environment. So in our local environment, it will become a vSphere app, and it would then power on. So the vApp if this vApp template, CentOS template, actually had a single virtual machine in it, then it would just convert it to a single VM. But if it had multiple virtual machines, then it's done a little bit differently. But don't want to complicate this too much. Basically, what we're saying is we have the ability to copy either a virtual machine that's powered off, or we can copy templates between the various clouds. In this case, I'm copying it from our public cloud in Virginia over to our private cloud here. And when I click on next, the task is to copy our template. Source cloud is Virginia. Source template is the CentOS 6.3 32-bit. My destination cloud is my local cloud. I have a slightly different name at the destination. I'm putting it in this folder here that I have locally. My destination host is here because that's how the deployment will be done, and the deployment data store. I had the ability to change disk formats, and which I did. I didn't want to power it on, didn't enable guest and lossless copy. These are other advanced options that are actually available. So what I do is I say validate, and it's probably going to tell me that my internet connection has a lot of latency, and that it may or may not be easy to move the template down. Yeah. So it says it detected high latency between the nodes. If the connection has high bandwidth, then you can use UDT, which is another protocol that can be used for transferring. Otherwise, use HTTPS. So, say warnings have been raised, we recommend you fix them before copying. I'm not going to worry about this at this point in time because our finish button is now available to us. So when I actually click on finish, the process of copying that template actually begins. Now, in the meantime, our template has been deployed in Virginia. As you can see, it's complete. I have a green, and so if I go into VDC 2 and I look at the virtual machines, I see that there is another CentOS 63-bit virtual machine in IDC2 that has been powered on. So vCloud connector seamlessly allows me to access and manage resources out in the nodes that it is connected to. So this is basically the hybrid cloud. You have the local private cloud here, and then the nodes. In the meantime, the template is copying. Because of the latency, it takes a very long time, so I'm not even going to worry about that. Now, one more thing to be looked at would be if you look at this, you see this INE catalog Virginia, and there is an up arrow on this. This means that I have now the ability to actually publish it to the content library, which I did earlier. Okay, so if I go to this INE catalog and I right click on it, I now can say publish to the content library, and it asks me, do you want to publish the catalog? And I say, yeah, published, and so it's published. What it basically means is, and I don't like the fact it kind of untwists all the twisties, but that's what it does. So what that actually means is, because my catalog is here, right? So INE catalog, and let's catalog Virginia, and I click on this, and so this has the up arrow as well. So basically it means that this catalog, from this catalog, you can publish whatever is in that catalog. Now, publish where, and so that's where the content library comes in, right? This is your content library, right? You have access to the INE catalog and the INE catalog in Virginia, and the actions in there. So if I select the German catalog, I can say, okay, I want to subscribe, okay, which is, the stuff is going to come to us. Select a target. Here we go. The folder catalog being created is under VSC management. Newer templates will replace our target crowd is local. I'll probably have to select a folder here, which I have not. You cannot subscribe to a data center. Select a folder. We have to select this folder, and destination resource is this. I click on next. My disk formats would be all thin provision for whatever comes down. And then it'll subscribe every 6 hours, and basically we'll just leave that alone, and I click next. So what have we done? We've subscribed to the catalog, which is the INE catalog in Germany, and we are making sure that its information comes into the destination folder locally, which is vCloud test, and everything is basically on the host data store. It'll be all thin provision, and it will be scheduled to run it every 6 hours. And I hit finish. Okay. Here we go. It's updated, so you can see there's one subscriber. It's been subscribed to, and what else can we do here? Let's look at. We can sync now, which you can do that. We can subscribe, which we already have done. We can unpublish. Now another action would be to unpublished. We can let's do a sync now. So we published item sync. Subscribed item is this, from vCloud local to vCloud test, and we do a sync, and it should be syncing. So we have the content library. There are the various tasks. These are the nodes. So the local node has this. The German node has my organization and its catalogs, and the virtual data center and the public catalog. The same thing here as well. At the Virginia site, I have the organization, the default catalog, the specific catalog I set up, my two VDCs, and the public catalog. So we have a hybrid cloud environment running right here using a vCloud connector. We have the ability to power up, power down virtual machines. We've copied templates, deployed templates. We've subscribed to catalogs. So let's just take a quick look before we this is a copy across the internet, so like I said, it does take a little bit long, and you can see by coming here you get some details about that. Here 74 meg have been exported, and so many have been imported between the source cloud in Virginia and the destination cloud. So we're leaving it alone. Everything is happening as we speak. You can see the subscription activity that we just ran. That's happening. This is the template. This is the template being copied down from Virginia over to local. It's 18% complete. It does take some time, which is why it's best to just synchronize the catalogs and operate in that manner.